Hello, I'm James Jolly and welcome to this special Gramophone podcast recorded on location in Cannes in the south of France, where the music business holds its annual convention and fair, Midem. Gramophone has been going to Midem for well over 2 decades, and it gives us the opportunity to hear at first hand about what's coming up from mainly the independent sector. It gives our advertising team the chance to meet many of the labels in one place at one time, and it also opens our eyes and ears to what's happening in the music business in general, some of the trends, the innovations and the ideas that are firing people's imaginations. I took my flash mic down to Midem and talked to some of the movers and shakers in the classical music world. And first stop was Jeremy Elliott of Retrospective Recordings and a record industry veteran. I asked him what purpose he thought Midem served.
It's an international meeting of everybody in the record industry worldwide. It's an opportunity for record labels and record producers and distributors to meet their counterparts from other countries around the world, and it's been going since 1976. I've been coming since 1982, and it has always proved incredibly successful, to be quite honest. It's the only way to keep in touch with people personally, and business of course is a personal matter, certainly as far as I'm concerned, and it's the only time you can meet all your counterparts and new business contacts.
I'm joined now by Jared Sachs of Channel Classics. Now, Jared, we bumped into each other in London the other week when Ivan Fischer and the Budapest Festival Orchestra was over. They performed the Beethoven Pastoral Symphony, which I have to say I thought was an absolutely staggering performance. Now, you recorded it back in Budapest under studio conditions in their concert hall. And what struck me about the performance is the way that Ivan Fischer had laid out the orchestra. And I gather he did that on the recording as well.
Yes, he did. Actually, it was... I look back at it now as a very interesting period. I went to a concert before that. He didn't tell us about this. It seems he had been doing that already for quite a while with the orchestra. The orchestra's pretty used to that. They kind of say, what's even thought of now, trying to, to perk up the orchestra, to make you listen differently, and especially the idea of the first winds players all play a lot with the string players. The second winds, they usually have long notes that have nothing to do with the first wind. So he was very serious. Let's put you and spread you among those groups of people where you are actually playing with. So indeed, the first bassoon was in the first violins. Second bassoon was in back, at least 10 meters away. And he had other wind players in front of him. And it was quite an amazing experience that you hear it, but you don't see it. You're used to visually, when you go to a concert, you look, there's the oboe and there's the bassoon. Where are they? And you hear it, but you don't see it. And then you actually do listen in a completely different way of listening. For instance, he did have the piccolo. You also mentioned that in your blog. I saw it way in the back next to the trombones.
Well, he had a kind of storm section, didn't he, up in the top right-hand corner?
Absolutely, and it works perfectly. Also in the recording, it's just they only come in for the storm anyway. So they were all together up there in the back right. It works perfectly.
And you've just done another disc with Fischer and the Budapest Orchestra. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Spent my Christmas time in Budapest, Christmas Eve, walking the streets of Budapest. Now, we did the Rite of Spring and the Firebird, and it's amazing. This orchestra, I don't think any other orchestra in the world would put up with that insofar we recorded in the daytime from 10 to 3, and every evening they had also a concert of the same repertoire. So the whole day of doing Firebird and the Rite of Spring and then a concert, it's incredible. And 3 days in a row, so it's quite,
So when's that scheduled for release?
September.
Well, we look forward to that. Jared, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So here we are, virtually sitting on the beach in Cannes, beautiful weather. I'm joined by John Kieser, General Manager of the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. After the huge success of the Mahler cycle with MTT and the orchestra, what's next on the schedule?
we're looking at a steady series of recordings that are coming from San Francisco Symphony, and they sort of fall into two categories. One is the core repertoire, and the other is repertoire that is actually not recorded that much and primarily concentrating on what we call the American Mavericks composers. For example, the next in that line, which will be issued shortly in February, is a recording of the Ives Concord Sonata arranged by Henry Brandt for orchestra, and that is also with the Copeland Organ Symphony. We think both these works are under-recorded, essentially underserved, but they deserve to be heard.
And this actually shows off something very core to the orchestra's life.
That's correct, and that's where we decided to concentrate our energies. I said Mahler has been a 10-year project. It's been a good run, and that will continue as part of our vocabulary going forward. But we really felt that we needed to also diversify our offerings, and so that's why the core repertoire and these Maverick works have come to the fore.
And what sort of effect do you think the Mahler cycle on record, what sort of effect do you think that's had on the orchestra's international reputation?
The Mahler cycle has created a presence for the orchestra internationally in a number of ways. The recordings themselves have received great critical acclaim from various countries around the world. We just met with our Japanese distributor, for example, who showed us that one very respected magazine chose not only our Mahler cycle as one of the top 10 recordings of the year, but also our Keeping Score DVDs were also in his list. But beyond that, we are, for example, going in May on a tour for about 3 weeks throughout Europe, and one of the major anchors of that tour is 4 concerts in Vienna, 3 of which are Mahler's repertoire. It's the Festwochen, it's an annual festival. This year the theme is Mahler, rightly so, because it's 2011. We're very honored to actually be part of that and to perform Mahler 2, Mahler 6, and Mahler 9.
Part of Aaron Copland's Organ Symphony from the recording due out in February on SFS Media, that also includes the orchestration by Henry Brandt of Charles Ives's Concord Sonata. Michael Tilson Thomas conducts the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra with Paul Jacobs as the organ soloist in the Copeland. Now, the San Francisco Mahler cycle has occupied those Californian musicians for the past 10 years, almost as long as the Vivaldi edition on Naïve, though that still has some way to go. But it's reached an important milestone, as I heard from the director of Naïve Classique and Jazz, Didier Martin.
In fact, we started in 2000 the recording of the complete manuscripts by Vivaldi in Torino. Because in fact everybody knew the Four Seasons and some concertos, very popular, but most of his opera, in fact he composed 100 operas, and only 15 manuscripts are now known by us. So this treasury is now in Torino, and in 2000 we started to record all these manuscripts. So now it's about 50 recordings, 10 operas, and yes, it's a huge success because this unknown composer, in fact, is now very popular on stage, recording. In Paris, Orlando Furioso is going to be performed on stage with Pierre Rodi, and the complete cast of the CD we did with Jean-Christophe Spinozzi, Marie-Nicole Lemieux, Philippe Jarouski, and this program is going to tour in Europe and to be performed in the Barbican Center in March. So yes, it's a huge success. We sold more than 500,000 units now, and we are still going on. The next recording will be in Versailles by Jordi Savall of Teotzone, the Chinese opera of Vivaldi.
And you've just launched a Vivaldi app. Tell us about that.
Yes, we wanted to share Vivaldi with all the current media. So now you can download an iPhone app for free and listen to 20 extracts of our Vivaldi edition with some information about each recording, the story of each recording.
Thank you, Didier.
Thank you.
I'm joined by Jeremy Elliott and Pieter van Winkle to talk about their new venture, piano classics. Jeremy, what's the rationale behind it?
Well, basically, it's Pieter's idea. Pieter is a great A&R director. I mean, one of the best in the world, in my opinion. And Pieter is a great piano aficionado. And we noticed a gap in the marketplace for a specialist piano label, of which none exists, really. I mean, with due deference to certain people in the industry who have a smaller attitude to piano, we decided to launch a piano solo and piano concerto recording label only, backed up by a website, www.piano-classics.com, which is basically there to broadcast information, music, record releases to a wide audience of pianophiles, of which there is a growing market. I mean, piano music is definitely a growing market, and we're here to fill that gap.
Now, Pieter, looking at the pianists represented on the label, it's very much sort of past generation and present generation, and I assume future generation too. Could you sort of explain the rationale between, the pianists we see on the label?
Yes, well, of course there's a wealth of back catalogue at all the labels, both major and independent. Because if you look at a label, let's say an independent label, all labels have some piano recordings, but they are delved into a whole amount of other releases, so they don't get the attention actually by the people who are potentially interested in it. And our aim is to make it a label which is very interesting for the pianophiles in general.
So it's a balance between material you license in from other people's back catalogues and new recordings that you'll make yourself?
Absolutely. Because you have to be a label alive, very much alive, which brings attention to pianists who actually have an active career or who are building a career. There's a wealth of talent around. It's unbelievable what comes out of all the great piano schools, both in Europe and especially also in Asia. It's unbelievable, the talent which arises.
Now, looking at your initial release, do you want to talk me through some of the highlights? Why you've chosen particular pianists for the label?
Well, I've been in the record industry also for nearly 25 years, so I've seen a lot of people coming and also going. Some of these records are for me classics, and also the pianists, they are incredible, talented pianists. For instance, somebody like Nikolai Lugansky, it's one of his first records, which he made when he was 22. Now, Bruno Leonardo Gelber, for instance, I mean, he doesn't have much of a career now. When he was in his prime, he was an incredible pianist. I mean, he was a protege of Rubinstein. And this recording I know for a long time because it's a Denon recording from the early 90s, and it was actually made in Holland. I was present there. It's a monumental performance of the Brahms Third Sonata. Somebody like Vladimir Ovchinnikov, he won the Leeds competition. He had a huge career. Somehow he is a bit forgotten. I don't know why, and I got in contact with him, and he's very, very enthusiastic in making new recordings. And this is a recording made for Collins Classics in the 90s, and it's a superb performance of the Mussorgsky pictures. Somebody like Yevgeny Korolyov, he's very much regarded nowadays as a great Bach interpreter, and his Goldberg Variations is a landmark recording actually at the moment. I mean, a few weeks ago he gave a stunning performance of the Goldberg Variations in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, and people were cheering on their chairs. So it's very much it's a label of young artists, because if you look at the list of young artists, the Lucas Genusias, he was a silver medalist of the Chopin competition this year. It's an incredibly gifted guy of 21. I'm very happy to have him on the labels. Somebody like Katja Skanavi. I hope that the label will attract a lot of pianophiles, seeing that, oh, there's a new piano classics release. That's exciting. Let's see what it is.
So, Jeremy, what are the ambitions for the label? I mean, how many releases are you sort of aiming for initially, and then over the course of the next 12 months or so?
Well, we're coming out with an initial 11. We also have the List series, a List Bicentenary series, which Pieter is putting together, including people like Berman, Earl Wild, Schiffer, etc. We should be coming up to about 80 to 90 issues in the first year. It's quite an extensive program, including new recordings and licenses coming in. And the amount of releases will, duly follow, which should be about 80, 90 a year. It's going to be extensive.
Well, best of luck.
Thank you very much indeed.
The da capo of the aria from Bach's Goldberg Variations, played there by Yevgeny Korolyov, one of the recordings due from Piano Classics, which will be launched in March. Now, one figure in the classical music business, indeed someone who's probably changed the way we consume recorded music more radically than any other, is the founder and boss of Naxos, Klaus Heymann. He's usually to be found in Cannes during Midem, though his verdict on the event is characteristically direct.
I would say it's moribund. I don't think it will survive much longer. I've been here for 34 years now. It's my 34th year in Cannes, and it's never been as quiet as this. And Midem Classique has very few stands, and there's really no reason for anyone to be here. It's inconvenient. It's the wrong time of the year. We all have to do our budgets. We have to do our annual year-end accounts. So it's really not a good time of the year. But in the past, it was great. There were lots of people. There was a buzz about it. This year it's been completely dead.
Now, you gather a lot of your companies around you, the companies you distribute and work with and partner around the year. I mean, what do you get out of this sort of forum or conference session?
Well, our distributors still come from all over the world, still come to Midem. So it's an opportunity to meet them in one place. We run our Naxos Day the day before Midem starts, every Saturday. We present our own new releases, the releases of our distributed labels. So it's an opportunity to present to everybody and make contact with all the people in one place. But we don't have to do that here in Cannes. We could do it in London, where airfares are much cheaper, and there's no reason to be here anymore. There's no excitement about it.
Now, when we met in the summer, we talked about new technologies and your view that streaming was the way to go, and downloading perhaps isn't the sort of salvation that a few years ago everyone had thought it had been. Do you think people here are in tune with that message?
Well, I mean, the fact is that last year downloads grew only marginally, whereas streaming concepts are, there are lots of Spotify. Of course, we've had our music library since 2002. I think downloads will probably stagnate around 25% of the total business. Physical maybe 25%, and I think streaming, subscription, all-you-can-eat type models will be the rest of the industry.
And would you say you were optimistic about the music business at the moment?
Extremely optimistic. We had a very good year, 2010. We had a good year in 2009. We even had a good year in 2008, and we look forward to a great year in 2011.
Klaus, thank you very much.